From 1986, the extended version of the song that really took off in America for the Blow Monkeys, Digging Your Scene. The group formed in the UK back in 1981, had their first UK single with Live Today, Love Tomorrow in 1982, followed by the albums Limping for a Generation in 84, Animal Magic in 86, and 87, She Was Only a Grocer's Daughter. They split up in 1990 while lead singer, guitarist, and songwriter Dr.Robert embarked on a solo career, and then, out of nowhere, in 2007, the Blow Monkeys reformed with all the original band members and released a brand new studio album called Devil's Tavern in 2008. And just this past month in the UK, they put out a live CD and DVD combo called Travelin' Souls. And our guest tonight from the Blow Monkeys is Dr. Robert himself. And, you know, my first question for you is, well, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good to hear.
In very good health.
In Spain?
Yeah, I live in Spain.
How long have you lived in Spain?
I lived here for about the last 8 years. Decided I'd had enough of the UK and it was time to get out and show my children as something else. And I love Spain anyway, so it wasn't such a hard decision.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about the Blow Monkeys, obviously. You've reformed, and you put out a record last year. And before we get into that, I want to get back to the very beginning of the Blow Monkeys, because the original style of the group from the very first album was a bit different than what the Blow Monkeys eventually became, you know, which was more of a fandom of R&B and soul. Was that a conscious decision? I mean, at the height of New Wave, were you suddenly discovering great R&B records?
Yeah, it was a conscious. Well, it wasn't, you know, but it wasn't a callous decision, but it was something that was just me evolving as a songwriter, I think. I mean, when we started out, I had lived in Australia during the sort of punk era, and I'd gotten into bands like Laughing Clowns and The Boys Next Door, The Birthday Party, and Nick Cave and Ed Cooper, people like that, and that influenced me a lot. But when I came back to England, you know, I got back into kind of what I used to be into as a teenager, which was black music, soul music as well, you know. So it all went into the mix, but it wasn't a conscious decision. It was just a natural evolution in my case.
You know, that's the thing. I don't know if it's this way anymore, but you were probably, as a teenager, listening to all sorts of music, right? Like a very eclectic taste?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I got two sisters that 10 years older than me, so in the 60s, when I was just a kid, they were still playing, they were into the Beatles and the Stones, and then later on Crosby, Stills and Nash. And when I grew up, my first hero was Mark Bolan, T-Rex, and then and then I was listening to a lot of soul music at the time as well. Things like, I mean, Curtis Mayfield, obviously, that was a big thing early on, Marvin Gaye. So, and punk came along. So all those things go into the mix, you know. It's all, you know, there were so many things.
And you got a chance to duet with Curtis Mayfield.
I did, yeah. That was a fantastic thing. He was in town, and I had a song, and it just worked out, you know, and we did some gigs together as well, which was fantastic. He was a lovely man, very special. Mm.
And you've also, you know, collaborated with Paul Weller, and I could see where the two of you would have, say, similar tastes in music. You know, with his...
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I loved Paul. You know, when I was, you know, kind of 15 or 16, he was already doing it with the Jam, and the Jam early Jam especially, were a big influence on me. I loved it. It was somebody in my generation who was kind of writing songs like that, and I think it's quite an English taste, you know, the Jam and Paul. It's not an American thing so much, but in England, he at a certain point was as important as, say, Bruce Springsteen is in America in terms of sort of talking, you know, telling it as it is from the street and singing working class songs.
You know, that's something that's sort of a hallmark of your music, is that you do have a political stance in quite a bit of your music. Did you ever get any trouble for that, for the BBC?
Well, we got banned once. The record we did with Curtis Mayfield actually got banned. It was a very innocuous thing, really. It was just called Celebrate the Day After You, and it was about a party that we were going to have after Mrs. Thatcher was finally defeated. Unfortunately, she wasn't. She won, and they banned the record anyway because they said it had a political bias. But that's how fragile democracy was in the United Kingdom in the mid-'80s. Because really, it wasn't a very dangerous song, you know. But I've always figured that, you know, politics and music really do go together. It's just, you you can't divorce the two.
And, for them to ban something with Curtis Mayfield on it is pretty disgusting, actually. I mean, how could you ban
Curtis told me that had happened before, to him. So, I think there were certain things that he released in the late 60s under the civil rights kind of movement that didn't get much play, put it that way.
Right. Well, obviously we're here in America, and, when Digging Your Scene came out, in '86 and had that kind of success, not only in Europe and all around the world, really. That was a big record, but especially in America as well. How did that feel, to crack America like that in '86?
I took it all in my stride. I don't think I realized at the time what a big deal it was, but I mean, obviously I enjoyed it, but you're kind of unaware of it until years later, really. I mean, I know a lot of acts from that time, our contemporaries, didn't crack America, and we were kind of lucky in as much, and I could never really understand why. I never thought that song was going to be a hit, so everything was a bit of a surprise anyway to me. But I loved it, because so much of the music that almost 90% of the music that I'm into comes from America anyway. So it was fantastic to get over there and see it.
I remember seeing the Blow Monkeys on, Noel Edmonds had a show that was broadcast in America. He did a show specifically for America, and you guys were on there.
Yeah.
And I remember it being pandemonium in the audience, because the song had just started to break here in the U.S. Were there any...
I don't remember that. I don't remember that, but I remember the show, and I just remember Noel Edmonds was a very strange guy. But that's another story. I do remember doing that. I remember also doing American Bandstand and thinking Dick Clark was also another very strange guy, but that's another story as well.
Well, were there any pressures, say, from...
It's me.
Were there any pressures from, say, a record label or anything like that to follow it up, or did they try to interfere? Because I talk to bands all the time, and usually when they have a big success in America, then like the American corporate head honchos start, seeing dollar signs.
Yeah, they managed to bugger it up, put it that way. I don't know why, because the next song that we had out in England was even bigger than Digging Your Scene. It was called It Doesn't Have to Be This Way.
Sure.
And it was top 5 in England, and for some reason it never came out in the States. And it was all to do with internal politics within our record company, and it was a load of rubbish, and really they should have gone with it and trusted us because we were the ones that gave them it in the first place. To be honest with you, I never paid much attention to record company people, and I still don't.
Well, nowadays, that doesn't happen as much because all the record labels are going out of business. I'm glad to see. I mean, it's more of a democratic thing now. I mean, I loved it at the time. Don't get me wrong. When you've got a big major record company backing you, for a while there, you feel like royalty. But I didn't want to feel like royalty. I wanted to be my own person, and they don't really have an idea about music. Like you said before, it's dollar signs that light up in their eyes, and that never really washes because people are cleverer than that. It's about the music. Well, with this new record of yours, you've obviously, the whole landscape has changed, and record labels are dead in the water, and people are getting their music out in more unusual ways these days, and usually digitally and online. And what prompted this reunion a few years ago? Because, unlike a band coming out and just going out and doing their hits and concerts, you reunited to put together a brand new studio album as well. And a well-received studio album, too.
Well, I think the main thing, in between that kind of little of 18 years, I had put out 8 solo albums, so I'd never really stopped, It may have been a different level, but I'd always been putting records out. But I just fancied being in a band again. I missed it, and I think they all felt the same. It was all the right, for a lot of reasons, it was the right time. But the main thing for me was to come with something new. It wasn't to be like... a nostalgia act or in any way. So I said to them, let's do it, but let's do it our way and sit around in a room and record what we sound like because that's our sound. So, the whole thing was about making a new record.
Well, that's great because, like I said, that a lot of bands take maybe a cynical approach, but you guys did it for the love of music and the love of creating something new. And
don't get me wrong. I mean, we're all cynics, but at the same time, it's all about the music. It has to be. If it was about going out as a nostalgia act, I would have done it years ago. And you've seen the band. I won't name any names, but there's plenty of bands out there doing that. But it's rubbish, because you're dead. You're dead as a kind of creative force, whether you like it or not. And that's not what we wanted to do. So I'm not expecting it to sort of take over the world and smash into the charts and blah blah blah. But it sounds great and it sounds fresh and it's us.
Plus, in America, you have to be like a 16-year-old jiggling floozy in order to have a hit record in America.
Which I used to be.
So do you foresee more Blow Monkeys records?
Yeah, I think so. At the moment, we're enjoying this one, and we're traveling around and we're playing gigs all over the world and doing what we want to do. But I do definitely think that we've got another one in us at least. Yeah, I think it was so enjoyable and easy, and I was really happy with what happened. People seem to like it, so I mean that's all around it. No one loses,
Well, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and
thank you.
And it's my pleasure. And where can people find out exactly what you're up to, your tour dates, your because we're also on the web and people listen all over the world. So where can people go?
Well, people just need to go to theblowmonkeys.com, and everything's on there. All will be revealed. So we're planning to come over to the States later in the year as well. There are things happening there, and that's definitely part of the plan because I love it.
Well, we'd be thrilled if you could get over here to the New York City area.
For sure.
Definitely.
I love New York. I mean, I've recorded a hell of a lot. New York was so important to me for some time in my life, and I'd love to get back there. Looking forward to it.
Well, we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much, Robert, and enjoy your picturesque Spanish. You don't have a villa or anything like that, do you?
No, I don't have a villa. No.
See,
I have a house.
I've got this whole fantasy built up in my head now.
Yeah, that's where it is.
All right, thank you so much.